Restaurant Unstoppable, inspire, empower, and transform the industry. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, founder and CEO of Restaurant 365, Tony Smith. Tony, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Oh, Eric, I am in so many ways. I mean, there's the business aspects of it, and then there's just life. And I am feeling good. Can't wait to talk about it today with you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And I'm really excited because Restaurant 365, in the 8 years I've been doing this, which is, it's funny, we started around the same time. You started in 2012. I think I started around 2012, 2013. And it's been great to watch the evolution of Restaurant 365 and just to see you guys grow. And today we're going to get the whole story of how you got to where you are today, your backstory, and the future of Restaurant 365. But before we dive into that, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
All right. Well, I have so many, so I won't share them all. My team can tell you here. I make up things. I say so many different things, and they're all probably lame. But I'll tell you, in high school, the one I had was never wrestle with a pig because you both get dirty, but the pig likes it. But I don't feel like that applies today. So I think today I'll go with during a league of their own. The star player Gina Davis, she tells Tom Hanks, "This is too hard. I've got to quit." And he says one of my very favorite mantras: "It's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great." I love that quote. I actually had it printed out. I put it on my wall here at home. So it's an awesome one.
That's a great way to get this thing started. And I'm curious, uh, what's the inner dialogue you have when things are hard? You can either choose to be in a bad mood or you can choose to kind of embrace it and just accept that it's going to be hard. But what's the conversation you have with yourself? What's that? How do you kind of stay positive during the hard times?
Yeah, I'd love to say I stay even keeled the entire time, but I think, we all have some faults. So I think, we have that initial reaction when you get some bad news and a knee jerk. And then you got to tell yourself as quickly as possible, okay, we're in this for the solution of it, not to wallow in the problem. Ooh, wallow. It's like another pig reference there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm full of those today. But yeah, no, that's what I think. You just set yourself as quickly as possible on there is a solution to this and I know it. Let's go find it.
I love it. Awesome stuff. So where does it make sense to start telling your story? Because I know you guys started in 2012, but I'm assuming you had things going on before then. Why should we be? I mean, traditionally we make an example of successful restaurateurs, but I mean you got to look at what you've created with Restaurant 365 and be impressed. So we have a successful entrepreneur with us today, and I feel like we can learn so much just from listening to your come up story. So take us to where it makes sense. Where does it make sense to start sharing your story? I want to get an idea of who you are.
Yeah. Well, it's always funny for me when people say entrepreneur because earlier in life, I really considered myself not an entrepreneur. Like when I was in college and people would talk about what they were going to do and maybe they'd start a business and I'd be like, I am not an entrepreneur myself. And even I had a research job during college interviewing entrepreneurs to do some research. And I always came away from those going, those people are crazy. Like what are they thinking starting a business? And so anyways, that was just always part of my mindset. I thought I was not an entrepreneur, but at the same time, when I look back on my life, the thing I have done is I always choose to put myself in places where I have autonomy to make decisions and where those decisions can have a big impact on whatever I'm involved in. So I think that's probably where it has come from, that throughout my life, I've probably had an entrepreneurial mindset.
Why
And
is economy of decision important before you keep on going?
yeah. For me, I mean, I feel like if you're just being driven, told what to do all the time, then you're probably not going to get to the best answer to this problem. You're not going to get a broad solution because you're just going to be doing what you're told. And so I've always felt like I've got a lot to offer, and I want to be able to drive towards broader thinking, new things, innovation. That's just the things that get me really excited.
I love that. So I can super relate to this idea of interviewing entrepreneurs, or in my case, restaurateurs, and then thinking to them yourself, they are crazy. And I've almost been scared straight. There's still a part of me that really wants to open a restaurant, but I'll be honest. I hear what you're saying with it takes a very special person. These are crazy people to do to put yourself what you have to go through to be successful. So, do you still not look at yourself as being an entrepreneur to this day, or how do you identify?
Yeah, at this point, when I look back on it, I guess I don't have delusions. Like I by definition, I am one, right? So I guess I am, but that's not really. I really do think of myself as a problem solver. That's what I like to think of, and I think that usually drives you to start something new because the solution is new to the problem. But I'm not doing it to start something. I'm not doing it because I'm a business guy. It's because I want to solve that problem. So yes, I guess I am in the end here. And so as I look back on it, out of college, I chose to work at a very small company that had just started the year before and had a handful of customers, a software business, instead of going for the big companies like Microsoft or some of these others where there were some job opportunities. And again, it was that same thing, right? I wanted to be able to make a difference and solve some things for myself. So
I love it. So kind of go back to where we were, that timeline of you first, you're interviewing entrepreneurs, and what was going on later on in your life as we go forward.
Yeah. So yes, keep moving forward. So I was interviewing those entrepreneurs in college. I came out, I took a job with a smaller business, and we never intended that company to be really huge, but it did grow nicely. It was a good, solid company and had a lot of fun there. And I guess a year and a half out of college, I also tried to start a vertical cloud SaaS company on the side, and it was a little bit ahead of its time. Cloud SaaS, that wasn't even a term at that point. And so, but that was the idea of what I was doing. And a big company got wind of what we were doing and ended up squashing us too quickly. And I learned a ton of lessons from that, because I kept my day job. I was working hard at the day job. We were doing that at night, and really found a lot of things about what it takes to start a company by doing them all wrong. And so that was good for me at the time. And I continued.
Let's pull back some layers here. I got to pull back. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Tony. So you said this small company, you learned a lot of big lessons. There was a big company that found you, what you were doing, kind of squashed you. Really pull back, because I think that there's probably some lessons here that we can draw on and apply to the restaurant industry. So what were those lessons?
Yeah. A few, I'll just go a couple of them. One of them, really, I think to start any successful business, there's probably 5 key things you can have, but there's 3 that are the most important. And the way I usually put it is you have to have 2 of those 3 or you will fail. Like, you can't start a business with one of those 3. So here's how I look at it. One of those things is money. You need some money. That's a pillar of starting a business. Number 2 is you need product market fit, or you need something that you're solving for someone else. And number 3 is that you need to be willing to take risk. And so the reason I say you need 2 of those 3 is because, look, if you have a load of money and you're willing to risk it, you don't need product market fit right out of the gate, man. You can burn money for years and find your solution, right? And the same goes for others. If you have product market fit, and you're willing to risk, like you're quitting your day job and you're going all in, and you do have a great idea that solves the problem, you actually don't need that much money if you're willing to put everything you have, all your time, into solving it. And if you really meet the need, other people are going to jump on and put some money in at some point. So I feel like it's flexible there, but those are the 3 keys. And then, of course, 2 others. When I said there was 5, the other 2 for me are: 1, you also need key talent. Oftentimes that's you. Hopefully it's yourself. But if it's not, you better align with some key talent. And then number 5 there is you need some early adopters, right? You need that one key customer that's going to test it with you, and they're willing to have the bumps along the way, whatever that might be. And so, I think a lot of those things do apply to restaurants, maybe not exactly like a software company, but those are some of the principles I learned.
I mean, there's definitely some things that overlap. I mean, especially having money early on, high risk definitely applies. Having key talent definitely applies. Having early adopters, people who are willing to talk about you and share you. And I think it does absolutely apply. But I am curious. You said that you guys came in, you learned some big lessons. What were the elements you did have? Did you have 3 of these?
So I didn't. That's the thing. At the start, I didn't know. So I had a great idea, and it met this market fit. This cloud, at the beginning, it was like, we're going to charge them monthly, and they aren't going to buy the software up front. People are like, what are you talking about? We're going to pay you monthly for software, and it's going to be on the internet. It's like, it was a new idea, but it really met their need, and we got some good feedback from these early customers that we had, but we did not have any money to start because I'm a year and a half out of school and I wasn't willing to risk because I wasn't going to quit my day job. So I was
Can you
keeping the
timestamp
job.
this for me? Can you let us know where we are on this point?
Yeah, this is, so that was a year and a half out of school.
Okay. And when was that? How much
Oh,
time between now where you are in your story in 2012?
oh, I got you. Yeah, take you back from now. So that is 15, 16 years ago.
Got it. Got it. So about 6 or 8 years before you started Restaurant 365.
That's right. I started R365 about 8 years out of school with Morgan Harris and John Moody, who were the two partners I was working with at Dynamic Methods, that business that I took the first job out of college.
Okay. And at what point were there other businesses between this experience and Restaurant 365 or any other evolutionary points that we need to dissect before kind of really getting into Restaurant 365?
Probably not too much. Just that John and Morgan and I had a great working dynamic there and knew each other's strengths. And that company was a Microsoft reseller, and we would customize and sometimes produce our own solutions for any industry. So that was really broad. And I really felt like we were reinventing the wheel every time. It was project-based work. We'd go in, we'd solve something with software and move on, usually accounting-based or operations software.
Okay.
And so those were really the skills we developed over that time. But some of the frustration is that it was so horizontal, you never knew where to focus your energy. And one day I'd be working with a really big cemetery, and the next day I'd be working at an oil refinery. And it's so hard to feel like you're going deep enough to make something lasting that way.
Yeah. And we do have some folks who have joined us. So I want to make sure you guys know that if you have any questions as we're going, make sure you type your questions in the comment section. If we don't answer them organically, we'll be sure to leave time at the very end to answer your questions. If you can't stay here to the end, that's why it's important to type your question out because I'll read it for you. Okay, moving on.
And make the questions really easy. Okay, sorry. Now you can keep moving.
Yeah, of course. Looking at your story, so it sounds like this is where you really started to carve out a niche for yourself because you were focusing on accounting and operations, but you focused on the skills that businesses need or the tools they need, but you hadn't quite focused on an industry yet. You're still kind of broad in that regard. So
That's
how
right.
did you start to over time find out that there is a huge opportunity in the restaurant industry? Like why restaurants, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so we're getting to this time frame, like the 2010 time frame, of really wanting to create a solution that we could go really deep with for one industry. And so we started to look. We went on the lookout. Like,
Why
where
is
is
that a
an
good
industry?
thing? Before you say, get into the details, why is that the approach? Because I think that's another lesson that you can cross utilize between industries, but why?
Yeah, for us, there was in our other business, there was really no differentiator, right? We were doing broad things, and yes, we did good work, but who do you go market to if you're trying to offer everything to everyone? It was so hard to tell our story, and we wanted a real story. And the deeper we went, we felt like it would tell its own story. Our customers would tell it for us. That's really what we were trying to get to, and that's why we felt like you focus on one industry and really set yourself apart from everyone around you in the area. And that's what we were setting out to do.
Yeah, but that's also a gigantic lesson I've learned here at Restaurant Unstoppable. Instead of trying to be everything to everybody, be everything to a few amount of people and really take care of that niche that I think you can just go. It's about trying to go deeper and then going out, making an impact versus having a big reach. What are your thoughts on what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying there, especially for restaurants. I mean, you look at some of the restaurants who have taken that approach who are extremely successful. You've got In-N-Out, their menu looks like 5 items. Or you have some people who want to make a good teriyaki bowl, and they make the best teriyaki bowl, and they're known for it. Or there's just so many restaurants out there that have been able to hone in on that and really make a name for themselves in specific things that differentiate them from the others. And I think that's fared really well for them.
Awesome. So at what point are you like, okay, let's go out there and create Restaurant 365? Take us through that and like just the formation of the company.
Yeah. So as we were interested in finding the right industry and the right opportunity for the skills we already knew we had to offer, at one point a restaurant group came across our plate there, and so as we looked into it, on the generic accounting software side and looked, okay, are their needs met with these other tools? And they really were not, because restaurants are very unique in the way that they operate. It's semi-manufacturing plant, but manufacturing it right in the moment in front of you. And so that makes for some unique inventory costing issues. And the way that they run, where they often open multiple stores, and sometimes those stores have different owners, one common owner and some other ownership structures. There's a lot of complexities there. And so as we saw that, these generic products just didn't really meet that need that can apply when you're selling bikes. You're buying and selling bikes. Hey, it's pretty simple. But for restaurants, it's nothing like that. And so as we saw that, it started to become apparent that they needed a unique solution. So then we started to look in the industry, what solutions are already out there for them? And there were a ton of point solutions, meaning a solution that solves maybe one need or two needs, but there weren't a broad set that was simplifying this whole experience for the restaurant technologically.
Yeah. So go back 2012, 2011, 2010, when you're dreaming this up. Paint the picture of the landscape of the restaurant industry, and I think you are kind of doing that right now. You absolutely are doing that right now. There is lots of solutions out there, but they're all just one-off solutions. So like one solution for accounting, one solution for labor management, one solution for inventory, and on and on and on. Why was that an issue within the industry? What are the issues when you come from just having a bunch of one-offs?
Yeah,
which is ironic because we were just talking about doing one thing really well.
You're right.
Keep going.
I think there were two main problems that I saw. First, the restaurant industry are restaurateurs. They are generally not tech people. And so most of the solutions at that time were not cloud-based. You were purchasing it. So it required a bigger cost up front. And then they were hosting and maintaining that themselves, either at the store or at their corporate office. And so that didn't suit them very well. That's where the cloud-based side of it was going to solve something, where we host it for you. You just use it. You don't think about the upgrades or anything. The other issue there, when you were asking about it, is with so many solutions, we'd find a lot of restaurants using 8, 10 different softwares, most of them not talking to each other, and then having to do a whole bunch of that work in Excel manually, print it out, tape it on the wall, and then later type that into one of the systems and then the other one, and so that's disjointed and can cause so many problems. People don't have information at their fingertips. They're only getting it at month end, all of those kind of issues. And so those were the things that we saw were frustrating for the restaurateurs. And because they weren't tech people, they weren't going to go build all the integrations to connect all the systems. They didn't have that vision. And so that's part of what we set out to solve, was simplify that situation for them. Could they go from 8 software solutions to 2 or 3 that all talk to each other really well? And that's really when we set out originally what we were doing.
Beautiful. So I guess, you identified the issue that the industry has a bunch of one-off solutions, but nothing that plays well together. Restaurateurs tend not to be the most tech savvy individuals. So you want something that's easy and streamlined, so you can just go in there and do what you have to do and get out. Anything else before moving on, talking about just
I think the only other thing on the timing there that was great is there's just 2 things that really were good for the timing, and it felt like the industry could adopt a solution like that. Number one was Wi-Fi and internet connectivity. Smartphones have been going for a while. People could now have better internet connectivity at some of these stores where before they couldn't. And so that allows for a cloud solution. And then one other thing is, we were seeing a new generation of restaurateurs, who had grown up with some technology and were more comfortable adopting that a bit better. And so those 2 things helped with the timing of when we came along.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a really cool thing about the restaurant industry, is that because it tends to be a little bit behind the curve. And I think it's actually changing, where we're actually starting to get caught up right now, but there's so much opportunity still to this day. If you look to other industries for innovation and look back to the restaurant industry and go, oh, why are they doing it like that, when there's this clear solution right over here that just hasn't made its way onto the restaurant industry scene yet? And I think I keep on seeing time and time again where people are taking solutions from other industries and applying them to our industry. Was that happening for you?
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it, if you look at it from a financial perspective, in general, industries, like take construction or some other industry, the average spend on software is 5 to 6% of your revenue is on technology to help automate this. And in the restaurant industry right now, the average spend is about 2.5%. And so I think that shows that there's still room for them to do more, adopt more technology, and still run successful businesses, but even more successful because of what they're going to get out of that tech.
Yeah. So when you came on scene in 2012, what solutions did you offer? Because you've evolved a lot since then. You don't offer all that you offer now then. So how did you break on the scene? What was your solution? Or what
So
was your
the
then?
the goal was really around these unique accounting needs, right? To get to an accounting solution that was connected to the rest of the store, be it the POS and that kind of thing. We weren't looking to provide the POS, we were looking to connect with it. So, but you can't just create an accounting solution in a month. It turns out that's hard. So instead, we had to build it module by module because we were doing this on our own dime. Morgan and John and I, we made an Excel spreadsheet. And it showed this is how much money we think is going to have to go in, and it's years worth, and it's our money. Do we want to do it? Because are we really in? Because you can't get to year 2 and say, hey, why isn't this making any money? If you knew from the beginning, it was going to take till year 5 or something. And so we loved it. We all committed to it and we went in. And so because of that, though, doing it on your own dime and knowing it's going to take some time, you've got to do it piece by piece. So to your question, the very first module we built was an integration to the point of sale where we would pull data from point of sale systems daily, consolidate them into a daily review for the restaurant manager, as well as a report across all the stores that would go to the corporate office and to the owners and flag possible things that are going on in the store, too many voids or strange comps and that type of thing. That was the very first thing we did, was basically a daily sales report aggregation. And that wasn't the end vision, but that's the module we started with. And then from there continued to build on accounting modules such as invoicing and accounts payable, a general ledger, a financial report producer. We just kept building from there until after a year and a half's time or something, getting to the start of 2014, we felt like we had a very solid set of core functionality.
So in 2012, when you were getting started, the vision was to create a bunch of solutions in one spot. But even then, you knew that you had to work to it. You started with one thing and scaled over time. But it was always part of the vision to be a one-stop shop for back of house and front of house and just back office solutions.
Right. The more simplification, all in one, the connected restaurant is a way we like to say it. That's what we're driving towards.
Okay. So why did you start with accounting? Was that where you thought that, well, your skill set, obviously, and then is that where you thought that the biggest opportunity was in the industry?
Yeah, it definitely fit with our skill set, but it was also the most underserved in our opinion, because generally it was just standard accounting packages, which are great tools, like QuickBooks and NetSuite and Microsoft Dynamics and Intacct, all those tools. Those are great tools, but they weren't geared for the restaurant industry. They were used anywhere. And so we really wanted to take all of these unique accounting problems and solve those things. And the landscape in terms of competition there was fairly wide open for us, because most people were focusing on solving the point of sale need, or maybe just an inventory or a scheduling need. You have great companies out there like Hot Schedules and many others that went really hard after scheduling specifically. And so accounting for us was in our wheelhouse and was a need that no one was meeting, or not many people were meeting.
Okay. So, today, to kind of paint the big picture, as of today, your accounting, inventory, scheduling, manager logbook, and sales reporting,
payroll, HR.
Yeah, is another one. I think. Anything I'm missing up to this point?
That's a pretty good list. We have a lot of, smaller modules. We've got AP automation. We have franchise contract management and billing. We've got catering event management is kind of a small module. We have a lot of smaller ones too, but you named the big ones.
So did Restaurant 365 evolve in that order, starting with accounting, then inventory, and then scheduling, management logbook, sales reporting? Is that kind of the evolution?
Yeah. Actually, that's a good listing of it. That is how it went. Although there was one little blip in there, which is we also wanted to provide early on, we thought we wanted to provide a marketing solution as maybe the second thing we offered. But as we dug in there a little bit, we understood for what we were providing the restaurants, that was not the second thing we should build after we spent a couple months building it and, and needed to pivot a little. But that's how business goes, and you learn and grow from there. But we did have to pivot a little on one module there.
But when you look at this, the things that came second and third, when you're looking at accounting, those are pretty huge elements. So I guess how are you prioritizing to?
Yeah, well, inventory is a part of accounting. There's almost everything you do in inventory has an accounting element to it, and it is very unique for the restaurant. And so that one was always made sense for us to go to after we got the accounting package in place. But it took some time. It's hard to build all that, of course. And so it took us time. But that one for us was always a no-brainer to go to next, because it's, when you look at a restaurant, what do they want to do? They want to increase their sales. They want to control their food cost, and they want to manage their labor cost.
Yeah, say, like the order in which you're scaling Restaurant 365 is the prime cost. You're looking
right, and that's what we built the business around. That the first reports we built was a prime cost report.
Yeah.
And the most used report in our system, even today, is the profit and loss, which to a restaurant is the prime cost report. Sometimes they stop right at the prime cost. Sometimes they look at the rest of the report, but that is the most run report. I mean, somewhere in America, every 3 seconds, someone's running this P&L, to look at their prime cost in one of the stores. And one of the things that's unique about our offering is that we provide that full experience to get all of that in one place, that they can see at the store, at the restaurant manager level, and also at corporate every day. And it's the same data. It's not where you used to wait till month end and corporate closes the books and then they send you your reports and say, this is how you did. No, now everyone looks at it real time because it's in the cloud. So yeah, that's really the difference there.
Got it. So I think I'm kind of just taking these questions as they're coming into my head, just being curious. But I think one of the things that I hear the most, I mean, unless we can, I don't think we're going to be able to unpackage all these elements of what you guys do at Restaurant 365 well enough. So I'd rather just stay aerial and look at big picture. And I think some of the biggest resistance people probably give you or your sales team when you're trying to grow and scale and get more customers is cost. And or just how do I validate spending all this money for one solution? And I guess what is the rationality, I guess, is what I'm saying. How do you justify, and what is your argument for anybody who's pushing back to you saying, I don't need all this stuff? Just take us there.
Yeah, I think some of the things that make it harder to run a restaurant, and especially harder to grow a restaurant business, like say open a new location, is the disjointed information that you have. And the fact that as you expand to multiple stores, your restaurant managers are actually different people and they operate the store differently. And some are better than others, and you wish that all your restaurant managers could perform the same as your best restaurant manager. And so some of the things that you get from a system like ours is that you have consistency. We automate as much as we can. We create this tool that's just augments your restaurant manager. It's almost like one of those movies where you see them put on, robot arms that make the people way stronger. They're still the people, but now you've got robot arms on as well. And that's what we're really trying to do, is allow them to lift more with the same resources. And so you can grow without adding people at the corporate office, and you can see all of these restaurant managers operating efficiently. And because the system is helping with all that, then you save on your food cost and you save on your labor cost, and you run a more profitable business while enjoying higher visibility at the owner and at the corporate level into what's happening in each store. And so some of that automation, visibility, consistency is what drives the profitability. And of course, the profitability pays for itself if you want to talk about the system cost.
That's what I'm saying. I think a lot of people have to, they look at just upfront costs. Like, this is going to cost me X amount of hundreds or whatever dollars a month. And I know it's case by case, depending on the restaurant size that you're working with, which is what will determine the rate of what you're paying. But you have to look at, like, what am I spending if I don't have something like this? What will it pay for itself? And when you're looking at tightening up your labor expenses, your inventory, and all those things, those are the those are your prime costs. So 9 times out of 10, technologies like this pay for themselves. But what about the pushback, the pushback you get when people say, I don't want I don't want people, I don't want robots in my business. I want people in my business. What's the pushback there? Like, how do you
Yeah.
counter that?
Yeah. Our take really isn't to replace people with this system, right? The system is to augment what the people are doing and allow them to spend their time better, less entry. So for example, you take our AP automation module. We pull the invoices from vendors into the system automatically from so many vendors. It's just automated and the invoice is in, where back in the day, you'd hand key those. And so it's like, do you really want your restaurant manager at the end of the day hand keying 10 invoices into the system? Or would you rather those were already in and they just get to look at them and the system flags, here's some prices that were out of contract. You might want to contact the vendor about that. It's a very different experience where you're not losing the human side of it. You're just doing some of the things for them that make them much more efficient.
Yeah. So I guess, what are some of the things you were hoping to talk about today? I want to give you an opportunity to share what you're excited about. So what are those things?
Yeah, well, it was, I appreciate you letting me tell my personal story and our story a bit. It's always fun to go back in time a little bit, but I'm more excited about where we are today and where we're going,
I think that's
and where the industry is going, than I am about where we've been.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, of course. So
it's cool that we've been there. It's like I say to our team, whenever we get to the end of a quarter, we have an all hands meeting and we talk about the goals that we just had and what we did, or at the end of the year. Okay, here was this year, we did it. And we reached so many of those goals. And I say, it feels so good. And we talk about these goals and we're so proud of ourselves and we hold ourselves accountable. Let's all take a moment for the year that was. Okay, everyone, next year, what are we doing now? Who are we going to be? That's how I do it. So, that's how I like to think of things, and probably in this podcast too. It's just exciting now to think, where are we today? Well, bringing Compete and, along with C2It's products here into the fold is very exciting for me. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to digging deeper into their business, helping connect it better to our business and be able to give the industry one platform there.
Yeah. So just for a little context for people who might not know exactly what we're talking about right now, prior to, I don't know, this month, some of the biggest computers out there as far as restaurant accounting tools were, I would say, the two most recommended on the show. Maybe you can throw a third in there. It was with RSI, but it was Compete and Restaurant 365 were the ones that were constantly being recommended to me on the show. And I remember even before, when Compete acquired See2It, that was huge. I remember being like, oh, that's going to be hard to compete with, because See2It was renowned for their inventory management. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? That was
their operations. Yeah, inventory and labor, really good at those things.
Yeah. So when Compete acquired See2It, I was like, wow, like See2It's going to take off. Obviously, you guys were able to compete and hold your own. Take us to where you were before this acquisition and where you are now because of this acquisition.
Yeah. So, where we've been as a business, one thing I probably say is we are a product first organization, and we're committed to being that throughout. And what that means to me is that we spend more on R&D, on innovating, on creating new solutions than most companies would, of our size, our scale, because I believe that's really what's going to drive the ultimate success and really transform the industry that we're in. And we're committed to that. And so because of that, we ended up raising money from venture capital about 7 years into the business, 7 years into the business. And we put that money hard at work to build more modules. And so, like you mentioned, where Compete had acquired See2It, and that was great for them. We continued to build along the way ourselves. And we had seen pre-COVID 4 or 5 years in a row of close to 100% growth each year. So about doubling in size each year. During COVID, it was different, right? It was hard on the industry, and we battened down the hatches a little bit ourselves. And as we did that, we still had a very successful year of growth, but it was different than what we had been accustomed to. And so now, with the timing of COVID subsiding, and what I see from the restaurant industry is really going forward in a great place, it seemed like a great time to look out there and say, who else is out there? What are they doing? And can we do some of that together to continue to expand who we are? And so as we looked at that, and we saw Compete and See To It out there still, like you said, a great reputation, great products recommended to people. And so we just felt like having those in the fold and ultimately being able to unite as a company would produce a lot of value for the industry.
So you were doing inventory management, and that was their big operations inventory management. How did did you get intellectual property that makes what you think you do better, or are you just more interested in eliminating some big competition?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to say this before we did the acquisition, but
Yeah,
it turns out there's some things they did better than us.
like what? I'm
Okay?
curious.
You can believe. There's just the Compete product has a really great commissary module. For example, Compete Advantage, great commissary module. It has a tool called Excellent Financials where you can produce
What
financial
is the
reports in
commissary
Excel.
module? What was the commissary module before you move on to the next
Yeah,
thing?
commissary is a central kitchen. So for stores that have a central kitchen and they're making the recipes, they have a really good product for for the other stores being able to order and fulfill from that central kitchen and track things. It's a great module. And they have a number of pieces that are solid. There is a ton of overlap between our products and Compete Advantage and the Radar product that came from See To It. We do inventory, and both of those products do inventory. We do scheduling. They do scheduling. We do payroll. They don't actually do payroll. So there is some that's not overlap, and there is some overlap. And so what I believe is right now, I've tasked our entire product management team with a heavy evaluation of all systems. So they're taking every feature and they're looking at the functionality across the different systems and ranking them and seeing what's missing and what's there, what's overlap. And then we're going to come out with a unified platform that is the best offering for everyone. And so that doesn't mean that all of the products are going away. This wasn't something where I was just trying to, by that, like you said, just eliminate something. I'm not trying to eliminate, I'm trying to produce the best platform for the industry.
Got it. Awesome. So I guess what are you really excited about going into the future? Like, what we talked about the future, where do you think the future's heading, and what are you doing to be ahead of it?
Yeah. Uh, I think it's great to see the restaurant industry in recovery. I think there's probably a better word. It's probably resurgence, right? That's what I see. Like this industry, the restaurant industry is taken back over. Years ago, they surpassed grocery spending, right? We've all heard that in the restaurant spending. And then in COVID, of course, that dropped back. And so what I'm most excited about is seeing the industry thrive. What I've looked at data wise from the past 3 or 4 weeks, it looks like restaurant spending is likely more than grocery store spending again. How cool is that? I mean, sorry, grocery
People
stores,
are
but like,
chomping at the bit to get back out there.
but I love restaurants, right? So, because I'm so excited about the industry itself and what it's doing, I think that means, look, if 90,000, 100,000 restaurants went out of business during COVID, which is terrible, and I hate to think about that, from a personal perspective, the light at the end of the tunnel is people want to go back to restaurants. And so now you're starting to see restaurants on average earning much more than they did during 2019 in this same time. So pre-COVID time. So restaurants from our data on average are performing better, but you're also missing this huge swath of restaurants that closed during that time. And so I love that there's an opportunity for these people to open new stores and for it to grow again. And as it does, I think it's a prime time. I think everyone understands that technology can make them more efficient and effective, that it's going to be valuable for them. And so I love the fact that here we are at this time where the industry is surging, where stores are going to open, and at the same time, they understand the impact that technology can have for them. And so it's going to allow us a lot of opportunity to continue simplifying some of those things in their life as they're ready to grow.
So you're doing a lot of talk about this data you have access to, and that's one cool thing about these tech companies is you service so many restaurants across so many different markets. You really get to see what markets are doing what. Do you have this data segmented by any chance? And what is happening post COVID-19 by segment that wasn't happening before COVID-19? If does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I mean, if you have a drive-through, you're killing it, right? Like, I mean, that's an obvious one, but yeah, we see that, right? If you have a drive-through, life's pretty good. And for restaurants that started with more of an online presence, adopting the ordering, that they're still succeeding. Some of the things we see that are different, for example, talking about the average restaurant, which is hard because there's so many different segments, but looking at just restaurants as a whole, dine-in usually accounted for 80% of all restaurant sales, and then 20% was a takeout or delivery. During COVID, that exactly swapped places. And then it slowly was coming back together as restrictions would lift. And we'd look at it by state and you'd see it bounce back and then bounce back. And you'd see the groups that have drive-throughs just killing it up at the top the whole time with takeout. And but then what we saw is dine-in came back and it passed takeout and delivery combined. And then it continued to grow. And that has shown us that people do want to dine in. They love the experience, the social part of it. And so as we look at the data and we see that happen, and you see it in states that reopened faster, you obviously see dine-in go up faster. And so one of the segments is geographically that we look at that. But one of the long-term changes, you asked, what are the differences? I think we may see dine-in settle in a little bit lower than it was pre-COVID forever. And that's okay, because a lot of these restaurants, almost all of them who survive, adopted the ability to service customers in other ways besides dine-in. And so it shouldn't hurt them if they are servicing customers with a takeout, with a curbside order.
Yeah. So you said it's the dine-in is lower than it was, and you suspect that it might not ever be that same percentage. It always has been, but how much lower? What is the percentage?
A small amount. I think it settles in. Maybe it's 10% lower than it was.
So
maybe it's 5%, but I'm not talking like 25% lower than it was.
So one of the things I was curious about is if you were able to segment between, if you have data on ghost kitchens or virtual kitchens and how they're performing, because I think that there's opportunity here, but I think there's a lot of overemphasis on how much opportunity there is in those segments. I think now that when that was the only option, of course it was act now, get on it. But when you look at human needs and human desires, ghost kitchens don't, aside from the human need to eat something, right? The
calories,
food in your body, it doesn't meet all the other human needs. And I don't see it having, I don't see it going anywhere. I don't see it taking over dine-in. Like people say this is the future. I think it's a part. It's just another option. Like you're saying, it's going to make up a smaller, that small percentage that we're not seeing in dine-in is being made up and probably being absorbed with these ghost kitchens and whatnot. What are your thoughts?
No, exactly. I mean, are ghost kitchens here to stay? Yes. Yeah. Are they a great idea? Yes. But are they going to take over the restaurant industry?
End all be all? No,
I don't think so. Right. No. And the same thing with delivery. I mean, you look at it during COVID, we saw our customer delivery jump up about 5 times the amount of what they were doing. But even at 5 times, the delivery still wasn't accounting for anything close to what the online ordering and takeout was accounting for.
Yeah.
It was interesting. And now as it subsided, we've seen that delivery come back down by multiples. Again, it's not quite down to where it was initially, but come down quite a bit. And so some of these things that people feel like might completely alter the whole industry, instead, they just open opportunity for another idea. The industry's huge. There's tons of, there's room for delivery. There's room for ghost kitchens. Hey, come everyone. There's room for everybody in here, right? We all eat all the time. And like I said, spending is more there than it is at grocery stores. But that doesn't mean that it's going to drastically alter the industry in the short term here in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. If anything, I think there's really good news here because it's lowering the bar of entry, which I think is really exciting for people, because before it was so hard to get into this industry because of the financial capital you need to even open a restaurant, but you don't need a restaurant anymore. I mean, that can be the goal, but you can start with having a brand that you do pop-ups around, and then you can just flip a couple switches, open yourself up for business digitally, and then shut those switches off when you close, right? And wait until the next opportunity, and then turn on the switches again, go into business, and then shut down. So it makes you so versatile, and the barrier of entry, like you can create a brand on 99 designs for like less than $500, right? And like turn on all these tools to bring your food to the digital market without having I don't have to explain this to you, but um any thoughts you want to compound on what I'm sharing with you?
Well, yeah, you go back to what we talked about at the beginning, right? To start a successful business, one of the first pillar I said was money. If
Yeah.
you can make it so it costs so much less money,
Yeah.
you're
And
removing
lower
some of
risk.
that brick and mortar.
And lower risk.
Man, then
Yeah.
you can start your business a lot easier. And but I don't think that just means you start it and it always sits in that mode. You might start it and be able to find what resonates with the customers a lot better, and you're
Exactly.
giving people more of what they want. But at some point that might even allow you to go brick and mortar. It might allow you to do more of those things, and serve people in more of the wallet share that's out there, because there's always going to be a large dine-in wallet share. And so yeah, that's one way that I look at it. It was interesting to see Wingstop just announce Thigh Stop. That's a virtual brand for them, and now that one's only going to sell virtually. And so you can see that there is legs in it, but it's going to be
Is that pun
made in
intended?
what?
Was that pun intended? Because it's leg stop. There's legs in it.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. Yeah, how bad of a joker. But yeah, no, it's so interesting that they do that. But that one's virtual. But they have their brick and mortar stores. They have their brand that they're using to catapult with that. It's not like that's just its own thing and it's the only thing they want to offer. Right.
So as a CEO, and somebody who's paying attention to the market and where the industry is going and trying to be ahead of it, what's one of the things that you think isn't really being addressed as much as it should be, as far as where the industry is heading and what you're doing to be ahead of it?
I think that as fragmented as you look at the technology side of the restaurants, I do think that there's still, like I mentioned before, because of how little is spent on technology in the restaurant industry, I think there's still a lot of adoption to be had there. I think that their stores can still realize a lot more value from a connected technology stack. And when they do that, I think you'll see, they breathe fresh air if I'm trying to open a store and I don't need to bring anyone new into corporate. I mean, it's just nice. And when I'm able to open that store and the technology helps to enforce some of the similarities across my brand, things like that, I think that that's still very underutilized out there.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this whole DIY movement that's happening across the world? Information being readily accessible, technology being something that's easier and easier to manipulate and use. Do you think that there's going to be this point where technology in the restaurant industry meet and restaurateurs more regularly start creating their own solutions? This is a conversation I had with the CEO and founder of Bbot, with this idea of that there's this DIY world emerging right now, where they think the future is kind of opening up the APIs and just letting people manipulate and create solutions. What are your thoughts on that in the future?
Yeah. I look at that, maybe how we talked about Ghost Kitchen. There will be opportunity for that. And I love that technology continues to advance. But I think maybe I would answer that with a tiny glimpse into my mindset back when we started Restaurant 365. I looked at it from a very simplified point and I said, we're going to build a few of these things. And we had 2-3 developers at the time, right? I was one of them. I said, okay, we can build these things with 2-3 people. It'll take us a couple of years. And once we have it, everyone's just going to use it. And we'll never need a big development team, right? I had this limited mindset of how easy it would be. But as we got into it, obviously we saw, wait, we could solve this other thing and we can solve this other thing and we can make it run faster and we can do, and there's so much that you can do, to where it was foolish of me at the time. I was thinking, man, why do some of these software companies have such huge dev teams? They're fools, It's like, I just didn't get it, right? Of course, where the more that you have there, you can provide so much more. And so of course, my mindset changed over time, and we have a large dev team and we're constantly building. And so I think for someone to feel like they would just build their own solution and make it, yeah, that works for a year or two. But then what about when things continue to change and evolve and grow? Are you going to then hire a whole army of people that are going to work on this? The DIY is pretty tough to really give yourself cutting edge and maintain that cutting edge over time. So that's where I think companies like us and others out there are really, the way that it's going to go.
Cool. Interesting. That was kind of probably my most open-ended question, as far as who knows what the possibilities are. But I do want to make sure we leave time. We have a couple folks who joined us to answer some questions. We actually have one of your customers in the chat, a past guest, Jeff Dixon, is it Provisions? I know is in the name. Unmute your mic. Help me out here, Jeff. It's not Central Provisions. Is it Provision Concepts? Is that what?
Yeah, we're based out of Oklahoma City, Provision Concepts.
That's
Tony, we have 7 stores open with 6 under construction. So we found your software probably 2015, and it started with a simple, where do we find a product that our store level could scan an invoice and send it to corporate without having to mail in a physical package every week of bills to pay. And it's exploded from there. And we it's a big part of what we do. So love it.
Awesome.
Jeff, congrats. I mean, thank you for being a customer, but congrats on getting ready to open 6 more stores. I love that.
That's awesome. I'm curious, Jeff, do you have questions? I know that you have a chief technology officer on staff or somebody of that sorts.
Yeah, so we do have our own CPA, 2 offices down. We have our own operations manager who does payroll and bill keeping, and a business development director that found your product like 6 years ago. And I hit them all. I pinged them all. I said, "Hey, I'm on a Zoom with the CEO of this massive part of our company. Does anyone have a question for this guy?" I was hoping for some feedback. Everyone loves the product, so nothing bad to say, only positives. So
I really appreciate that, Jeff.
Well, I mean,
yeah, when I saw the email, when Eric did the blast to say, "Hey, I'm going live with the CEO of Restaurant 365." Normally my schedule doesn't allow for me to participate with stuff like this, but when I saw the email, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to jump on this thing." So it was just cool to hear a story. I missed the first little bit of it. It was interesting for me to parlay part of my forward thinking process that you found VC money to help achieve some of your goals and acquisitions and stuff. So that's kind of what I do in my role with the company. I'm kind of more financial analyst. I started off as the KM, as our first restaurant 7 years ago, but I've kind of turned into a growth role and fundraiser and such. So it's cool to see a startup be as successful as you guys. So congrats to you.
Thank you.
Awesome. I do actually, if you don't mind, Jeff, I have some questions for you about what it was like going back 6 or 5 years ago. How long have you been using Restaurant 365?
So our first restaurant opened in 2014, and we were QuickBooking it. We were just attempting to do that the best we could, and it lacked certain features that we wanted. So 2015, I was able to hire my first back office person, and before that, I was the kitchen manager and then going to the office late at night, just you're the CEO and the janitor type scenario. And when I was able to afford some help, she really sought a software that met our needs better, and came across probably through a Google search, Restaurant 365. And it, like I said, it really stemmed from just that basic need of wanting to have invoices integrated through our vendors, and the ability to, I think, scan. And I'm the last guy to talk savvy about Restaurant 365. I'm lucky enough to have a team to help do all that work. But it's just a simple way to communicate instead of having to mail in all these packages. Yeah, Eric, I've already forgotten your question. Now I'm rambling.
No, you're answering it perfectly. Really, what I'm trying to get at is what. Just a real testimonial of somebody who uses Restaurant 365, why they needed the solution, what the biggest pain points were, what you're identifying. And then the only other thing I wanted to know was when you did, bite the bullet and choose to take this investment and implement it in your business, Restaurant 365, how were things afterwards? Like, what was the transition like? What was the team? What was everything like after implementation?
After implementation, it's that solidification that you have a system in your business, and here's how we do it. So I use the same point of sale. I use Toast. I use the same accounting software, Restaurant 365, and it's an an adaptation with your team of here's our standard operating procedures, via inventory or payroll or timekeeping or you name it. And there's so many bells and whistles to Restaurant 365 that I kind of shamelessly admit that we don't even use, that we had self-admittedly should, like the theoretical food cost, for example, is something that I should totally use as a business. I should say, okay, based on my PMix, my product mix, what did I sell in this time frame? What should my cost of goods be if we didn't waste a single thing? Versus the method that we use is a little more crude, just with an Excel spreadsheet. That's something we should stop what we're doing and dive into before we continue to just get so much bigger. But there's plenty of bells and whistles, and it's simplified my team's process. So Sarah could work at concept 1 and get promoted to concept 2, and she knows how our processes are. It doesn't matter the cuisine we sell or the food we sell. The back office side is seamless.
Jeff, I think my team told me that report you're referring to, actual versus theoretical food costs, I think they recently told me it's the second most used report in our system. So I'd love to see you get into that and get some of that value out of it.
Shame on me, man. That blows me away. Like it's almost like you limp along in your daily life with like bad habits, and you're like, gosh, I just need to like bite the bullet and like change this habit. And like we totally should. It'd be very interesting to see how much we lose from theoretical food cost to what we actually compile and turn in. We use just a simple Excel spreadsheet now where we take our beginning inventory, add our purchases, back out our ending inventory, and that's our usage, divide that over our sales, and that's our percentage for our cost of goods. But I should totally, I have no clue what the theoretical should be, and shame on us. Dude, I'll make that a challenge the rest of this year. Brittany, that's the one thing she did text in. I said, one other question for this guy. And she goes, shame on us. Like we should use that tool. So
that's great.
Just for the record, Jeff we did not plan to have Jeff here. I'm not paying Jeff to come say all these great things about Restaurant 365. He's just a user of the service, past guest on the show. If you guys are interested in listening to Jeff's episode, he's episode 776, the co-founder. And what's your official title? Is it CEO or CTO?
Co-founder's great.
Co-founder of Provision Concepts. It's a great episode. And I do know we are almost at our time. I want to respect your time, Tony, but we do have one more question. It looks like Jeff wants to chime in.
One final question and sign off. Eric, is Tony on an episode that I can go back and listen to?
Yeah, it's right now.
Okay, cool.
It's happening. Yeah, this is
cool.
This is going to be pushed to the episode to the podcast.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So there is one more question in the chat. I wanted to make sure, Sean, if you're able to join us, you can unmute your mic real quick and ask your question. If you don't do it in 2 seconds, I will read it for you. Okay, looks like you're available. Go for it.
Hey, yeah, thank you. I'm actually a big potential fan of Restaurant 365, but we ended up rolling with a system called Razzie, and for some reason I thought it was actually a complementary system, but it sounds like it's actually a competitor. Would you be able? Have you heard of Razzie before? And could you confirm if it's a complementary system, because it is accounting and inventory? So I might have answered my own question, but
yeah,
again, I'm trying.
Yeah. I had recently actually Razzie just came across my inbox, and so I've learned a little bit more about them. They do offer some of the functions, so accounting and inventory part. Where we had shared some of our modules earlier. There's some other things we're doing probably a little broader than they are, but yeah, they do a number of the things that we do. And I think there's, from what I understand, a heavier service element as well with them. So yeah, but that's great that you found a solution. I really support restaurants adopting technology to try to drive some of this value. So I'm glad that you're doing that, but we'd love to be able to help you as well. So.
Gotcha.
Awesome. And then I think we have time for one more question. Ben did just type in a message. Ben, do you want to unmute your mic and ask it?
Sure. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Great. Thanks for doing this interview. It was great to hear from you, and sounds like you've got a great kind of a product that can help on the accounting needs and many others for new restaurants and large scale restaurants. I'm just getting into the space and hoping to open a restaurant next year. So as a restaurant tech CEO, what other tech in the restaurant space do you feel is must-haves for, a new restaurant? Just to give context, call it like a 200-person outdoor focused taco spot, delivery, takeout, fun spot. But just what other tech do you think is great that you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really, like I said a little bit earlier, you want to find the technology that will help you drive sales, control costs in labor and food. And so in the driving sales side, I think you want a very solid point of sale solution, right? To be able to take these, and I really think that you'd want one that's incorporated with a loyalty marketing type of engine. I think those two things go hand in hand, and I think you really want to have that together. And then you even mentioned it there with delivery and ordering, but definitely you want a solid online ordering system that has some really good menu management so that you can update that on a regular basis instead of having to go to that company and ask them every time you want to change the menu. That's some of the complaints I've heard from some of the restaurateurs out there of what they do or don't like with those systems. But to be able to drive your sales with those features, that it's very important technology to have.
POS, marketing tool, and online ordering is what I heard. Those are the big ones?
That's right. Yeah. Outside of what we provide, right. Which is then all the back of it, which is scheduling, payroll, food management, inventory management, accounting. Yeah.
So I'm gonna make you go one step further. Who's doing it really well? Who do you look at in those three verticals and go, this is a company that's worth looking at?
Yeah. It's tough to pinpoint one because they're based on the size of the group. Right. So in the SMB market, I think everyone hears the names of groups that are really succeeding well there on the POS side, like Toast. Right. They have a lot of functionality in one spot and they're doing great on that side. If you're going up, if you think you're going to add a lot of locations, you're really going to the enterprise side. There's groups like Brink, they have a good cloud-based POS system up there that's really starting to succeed quite a bit. And so it depends on what size group you're trying to be or what the aspiration is there. But yeah, I definitely would go cloud-based on the POS, one of the cloud-based providers at this point. I mean, I think that really is allowing a lot more innovation on that side than if you're going to go with an on-prem, even though there's still good on-prem groups that are still succeeding. But yeah, I'd go cloud on that.
Tony, we are 5 minutes past our agreed upon time, and I recognize that, and I want to make sure we wrap up. I know you're a busy guy today. So
I had a meeting 5 minutes ago. That means, yeah.
Oh, shoot. So before we say goodbye, I always ask my guests to call somebody else. So who's one restaurant operator? I know there's a lot on your radar, but one that's doing a really great job who you think needs to be made an example of. I'll try to get them on the show.
Let's see here. I've been really impressed with what Freddy's Frozen Custard has done as a brand. I think they've been great. They've seen some great growth. They really have adjusted in COVID and succeeded there. I've just been so impressed with their brand.
Is there a Freddy behind that brand? Is that the person I'm going after?
I actually don't know Freddie myself, but
the person I need to talk to.
We work with them and with so many of the individuals there. I'll figure out who I could give you a name of.
Awesome. And what's our call to action? If we want to learn more, or if we want to follow what you're up to, what's the best way to connect or to follow you?
Yeah, please go to restaurant365.com. We've got tons of resources where you can get a free demo there and learn a lot more about what we're doing. Let us help you change your restaurant.
Beautiful. Tony Smith, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, to share the evolution of Restaurant 365, and to talk about the future of the industry. There is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
Thanks so much, Eric. It's been good.
Cheers.